Welcome to Dream Farm. Today is day 2 of the TSI on the farm. The first order of business is getting a saw unstuck. I'll show you when we get up in there. I made a glaring mistake there and I didn't notch the tree. Pretty good sized tree. I thought it was going to fall down the hill, but it had a branch that was off to the side and it wanted to go in the direction where the branch was hanging. So I got the saw stuck in there. Took the body of the saw off and left the blade. So now we're going to go in there and see if we can get that tree to fall down without destroying that bar. So now, yesterday we talked about what we're cutting, and I won't go into that a whole lot more. You know, we have a little bit of flexibility there. You know, he gave us the minimum species that we need to remove, the forester did, and it's really focused around, like I said yesterday, elm, bitternut, hickory, and ironwood, some basswood. Let's see, there were a few others on the list, but you know, the way we're going to approach it is we're going to take almost everything except what you would call a high forestry quality tree. We're going to leave some shagbark hickory, but we're going to take pretty much everything else but oak, walnut, and we don't have any cherry on this farm, but that'd be another one you'd leave. Anything that's, you know, has some long-term forestry value, we're going to leave. And then if we get behind on our timing, we may scale back a little bit on how much we cut. We're not going to cut a bunch of cedar. I talked about that yesterday too. It's just there's so much of it. We could spend a month just cutting down cedar trees and we would never get this project done. So we're going to come back to those, you know, once we get everything else cut. So today what I really want to talk about is whether you kill the stump or not. And once we get up in there and start cutting, I'll come back to that topic, but that's going to be the main theme of today's episode. And there's reasons, there's a trade-off there, and it's probably more interesting than what you might think. And the decision is not quite so simple as what you might think. And this whole thing is going to come back around to a concept called a mineral stump. And if you know what that is, you already know what direction I'm going with this, but if not, you might find this an interesting topic. So let's hear from our sponsors, and then Carson and I are going to get to business cutting down a bunch of trees today. Dream Farm is brought to you by Whitetail Institute Food Plot Blends, Hunt Stand Pro Whitetail App, Hoyt Archery, Wildlife Farming, and PH Outdoors. Yeah, see how steep it is? Yeah, no kidding. Wanted to fall that direction. I thought it was going to go that way. I should have notched it. If I would have notched it on that side, it would have been fine, but I just thought that gravity was going to take it, but just the way the tree's formed, it tried to go to the side. I mentioned that I was going to talk about whether or not to kill these stumps. This says Tordon on the bottle, but it's just an old bottle. I've got Garlon 3 in here. and I didn't dilute it. They recommend in the label that you can either run it pure, you know, undiluted, or diluted 1-to-1 with water. I thought I'll just try it this way first. Maybe, you know, as the time goes, I'll start diluting it. It probably makes more sense to dilute it. But you just spread this onto the stump, I think. Yeah, there it goes. So I'm just making a, basically not getting it on there too thick, because like I said, it's undiluted. So now the tree will take that up, the stump will, the roots will, and it'll kill this tree. There's a trade-off here. On one side, you don't want this thing resprouting and coming back with a whole bunch of, this is an elm of some kind, I believe. But I know it's not one of the trees we want, so I'm not great at identifying every species, but this will resprout if you don't kill the stump. Most of the trees will. And then you get this whole, you know, bush where you had one stem before, you might have, you know, 12. So that's the downside if you don't kill it. But the upside if you don't kill it, if you have a lot of deer, is they'll eat those sprouts. So now you've got this whole root system that's underground, forcing all of the nutrients and energy that it can produce into these sprouts that are coming up off this stump. And that's what they call a mineral stump. You know, some people call it that, and you may hear it, you know, someplace along the way. On the farm that I had in southern Iowa, we didn't kill very many of them. We killed the ironwood because the deer didn't eat the resprouts. But all the other stuff that we killed, or that we cut down, we didn't kill. And the deer ate the resprouts, and they got a lot of nutrient value out of that because of all the minerals and so forth that the tree is bringing up from its roots. So you might want to have a bigger conversation with your forester if you get into a TSI plan to find out which ones he really thinks that you have to kill. You know, and we're going to kill almost everything here because we don't have so many deer that they're going to keep eating these sprouts down. So we'll end up with these, you know, like I said, these little bushes where we used to have trees. So I'm going to kill, just like I said, just about everything. We might leave the odd one here and there, but that is the trade-off, and that's the whole idea about potentially not killing them. And I know a lot of guys that intentionally will cut trees down and not kill the stump just so that you know, that nutrient flow comes out into those sprouts and then ends up with the deer. So we got a little bit of work. I've got probably 10 trees here from yesterday that I need to hit with this treatment also. You don't want to overdo it because, you know, the garland's not super aggressive, but the tordon is really aggressive. And I've had it where if you put too much on, then it runs off the stump and it kills, you know, the stuff that's around it. And you get a rain or something like that and it washes it down into the ground, and that stuff is really, really aggressive. But the garland is, you get less of the, you know, collateral damage with that. So that's what I'm using. So that's the trade-off. And that's really maybe the focal point of today's episode. We'll do a bunch of cutting. I wish we could stop cutting now that we got the episode done, but we got about 6 or 8 hours left in the day to cut more trees down. But anyway, that's something to consider. You don't always have to kill them. You know, sometimes it makes sense to let them resprout. One more tip on killing these stumps. The tree transports the sap up and down the outside a lot more so than the middle. So if you're going to have the most effect with your chemical, you want to make sure that you're hitting the outside of the stump, or the final outside layers. I don't know what they call that, cambrium or something like that. Fancy, it's got a fancy name, but I do know that to be most effective with the chemical, you need to make sure that you get a good application around the outside of the stump. Well, we're taking a little break. We're going to wrap up the day 2 cut right here. I'd forgotten how much work this is. Maybe I never knew. There's a good chance that I've never hit it this hard before. I think I did a couple times last year cutting those cedar trees down, but I'd say we maybe got 2 acres, maybe 3 if we're lucky here. I don't think it was quite 3, but 52. So 2 down, 50 to go. That doesn't sound too good. But we'll just bring more food and water with us next time. That'll help a lot. You know, people don't realize how much work this habitat business is. And I suppose, you know, if you just did a kind of a halfway job, it wouldn't be so bad. But we wanted openings, pockets, places where the sun can get to the ground. So we had to cut quite a few trees in order to do that. And in the process, you know, obviously you're spending a lot of time going back and forth and filling the chainsaw up with gas. And so I appreciate Carson working so hard today. You can see us here for the next, oh boy, I don't know, maybe a month. But we'll be back again tomorrow with another episode. And I've got a few more topics I want to, you know, kick through before we sort of move on from the TSI work. But we'll catch up with you again very soon for the next episode of The Dream Farm. And remember to always dream big.